G'day and welcome to Oly35mm, user-based, quasi-empirical, cheap and cheerful videos on Olympus Zuiko branded 35mm lenses. And today it's the OM series and it's on the three different types of sensors that I have been testing. The Micro Four Thirds on the OMD E-M5 MkII, the APS-C on the NEX-F3, and I actually have that on there today, and the full frame on the Sony A7. And today I would like to share with you the 200mm f5. But before I do, I'll take this off in a moment, but I'll just quickly explain. The reason why I have the Sony NEX-F3 on is to give you a bit of an idea of what this lens, and that's the lens there, that's the adapter, and that's the camera obviously, what the lens looks like, and I'll give you an idea of what it feels like on the smaller cameras. And these lenses, once we start getting into this sort of size, start to become a little bit of a problem. They're a little bit heavy, they're front heavy, and they're quite long, and they're not that easy to use on the smaller cameras. On the Sony A7 is fine, but these smaller cameras, it's a bit tricky. So just thought I'd show you that, get that out of the way, and I'll put the rear lens cap back on, and we'll talk about, actually for the moment, we'll actually talk about the 200mm lenses that are actually in the Olympus OM range. Excuse the cough. Now, they have two. They have the f5, which is here, and there is also an f4, which is 2/3 of a stop faster. The f4, I have to admit right here and now, is probably my pick of the two. However, there's nothing wrong with the little f5. Bit of a problem at both of the ends of the aperture range, where it tends to get soft and have problems with chromatic aberration. But all in all, this is a very nice little lens and should not be discounted. However, quite often they will actually sell for more these days, even though it was considered the budget model in the day it was actually manufactured. They can actually fetch more these days than the f4. So be careful and make sure that you're well informed before you decide to buy the f5 over the f4, if indeed you're thinking about an f5, sorry, if you're thinking about a 200mm at all. Okay, so the f5 is 105mm long. It's 380 grams, which is about 90% of the length and about 80% of the weight of the f4, which is 490 grams and 127mm long. And the f4 takes a 55mm filter, whereas the f5 takes a 49mm filter. Both have built-in lens hoods, which is rather handy. Wouldn't that be nice if some of the modern Olympus lenses followed suit, or the modern Zuiko lenses? It has an aperture range of f5 through to f32, and it has a focusing range of 2.5 meters. So, you know, we're talking telephoto here, we're not talking about anything close. 2.5 meters, of course, through to infinity. There are the depth of field indication marks on the front from f22 through to f8. Now, as far as the apertures are actually concerned, f5 is soft in the corners, a little soft in the center, on all three sensors, and there is quite a large amount of purple fringing or chromatic aberration, especially towards the edges, but pretty much across the frame at f5. It does get better by about f8, but the corner aberrations or purple fringing tends to go through the entire aperture range. It's quite sharp in the center at f8 through to f16, and not too bad at the edges, best at f11, which is not too bad at all, both center and also edges. So very, very good and quite sharp. Reasonably contrasty in good light, but can be a bit flat in soft light, and I think that's mainly because of, partly because of the compression that you get. I mean, this is 4 times the magnification of a 50mm lens. I get you 4 times closer, if you will. So it tends to flatten the perspective anyway, and I think that does add to the look of a lack of contrast. But in good light, with a good contrasty subject, it looks very, very nice. It has 6 elements in 5 groups, actually, compared to the F4, which is actually only 5 in 4. And it has quite a nice feel about it, weight-wise, on the larger censored camera, on the full frame camera, and feels perfectly fine on film cameras as well. So all in all, it is a nice lens. I'm very, very happy with it. I won't be keeping this in the collection. I'll be keeping the F4, but it is certainly worth thinking about if you're looking for this type of magnification or this type of telephoto. There are 2 others that you can think about, although one's pretty much out of the price range. 2 others that you can actually think about for a little bit under that, as far as focal length is concerned. They're 180s. There's a 180 f2, and there's also a 180 f2.8, which is actually reasonably priced. I think you can pick one up for about 400 Australian dollars, an f2.8, if you hang around and you look for one. But the f2 is quite a prohibitive price, and actually quite hard to find. I couldn't actually tell you what the going price was at the moment, because I haven't seen one for quite some time. There is also a 250mm f2.5, I think it is, or it might be an f2. No, maybe it's an f2. That is huge. It's thousands of dollars, and really doesn't come into the race while we're talking about this type of lens. So, you know, unless you're an absolutely avid collector or you had a bucket load of money, these 2 plus the 180mm f2.8 are probably the only ones that you're really going to be actually looking at, I think. So that's the 200mm f5. As I've said before, quite a nice little lens, well worth looking at, but compare it to the f4 if you're going to be buying it online. And you should pick up one for about $120 to $150, and you can actually pick up the f4 for anywhere between, say, $120 and maybe $180 if you get one in perfect condition. So just be careful when you're buying them. So anyway, that's it for the day. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.